New U.S.-Mexico border barrier charts tricky course near homes. See photos cleveland.com. Gallery along the U.S.-Mexico border. For all practical purposes, the purple and white stucco shrine that Jose Arias built to celebrate his recovery from a heart attack and honor his family lies in Mexico. The only way in and out of his plywood shack is through one of Tijuana's oldest neighborhoods, a patchwork of dirt and paved roads where dogs roam freely and the sounds of roosters and power tools fill the morning air. The shrine's backs, but, according to the U.S. Border Patrol, Arias' structure encroaches on U.S. soil, posing a dilemma for the Trump administration as it pursued a $147 million replacement of 14 miles (22.5 kilometers) of barrier stretching east from the Pacific Ocean should the shrine be saved or destroyed. The U.S. faces a similarly delicate dance as it charts a course to extend or replace barriers that blanket nearly one-third of the border. The Path of the Sand, the Rio Grande marks the border between Texas and Mexico, ensuring that any land barrier on the U.S. side creates space between the wall and demarcation line established in bilateral treaties. One treaty limits, sometimes, soil and rugged terrain prohibit walls right on the border. In other areas, Rodney Scott, the Border Patrol's San Diego sector chief, initially thought the shrine was doomed, but he sympathized with Arias as he learned more about it and a nearby shack belonging to Arias' daughter. There. Arias moved to Tijuana in 1957 from central Mexico and settled in Colonia La Virtud, a neighborhood where residents crossed U unimpeded and illegally to work or play soccer and baseball in San Diego. He and his wife raised 14 children at the home they bought in 1978. He turned its dirt. Illegal crossings slowed after an amnesty granted during the Reagan administration, and Arias returned to full-time construction work. Scott, who grew up in the border town of Nogales, Arizona, where his father commuted to work at a Mexican factory, became a Border Patrol agent in 1992 and was assigned to a station a few miles from Arias' home. Thousands would get. Scott estimates that 9 of 10 crossers eluded capture. The first stretch of border wall was built in San Diego in the early 1990s, made of corrugated steel matting used by the military as temporary runways. In 1990, Border Patrol arrests in San Diego plummeted 96% from nearly 630,000 in 1986 to barely 26,000 in 2017. A factory outlet. Scott described San Diego's transformation to President Donald Trump on live television when he toured border wall prototypes in March. Trump repeated, the crackdown pushed illegal crossings to less patrolled and more remote Arizona deserts, where thousands have died in the heat. Border Patrol. Scott said the Border Patrol had to start somewhere, and San Diego was the busiest corridor for illegal crossings by far in the early 1990s. Trump inherited 654 miles 1,053 kilometers of barriers, mostly built from 2006 to 2009, and has awarded $1 billion in contracts, almost all of it to replace existing wall. Work on his first contract awarded in December will replace San Diego's steel mesh barrier, which worked like a fortress a decade ago but is regularly breached with powerful battery-operated saws only recently made available in home improvement stores. The Border Patrol is almost finished replacing the first layer with steel bollards up to 30 feet 9 meters high. Agents couldn't see. The U.S. State Department and U.S. delegation to the International Boundary and Water Commission are working with Mexico on one of the few unfinished areas, the luxury homes and a tennis court that poke into the U.S., Scott said. From a distance, the U.S. government, coordinating with Mexico, removed some trees in Tijuana because trenches for the new barrier might sever their roots, causing them to die and possibly fall, Scott said. Arias built his shrine about 15 years ago to celebrate his health and, later, to honor his wife and son, both deceased. Behind a locked the Border Patrol decided the shrine could stay, although it needed a different base to avoid falling into new trenches. Officials say the Arias, now 84 with a shock of white hair, questions the wisdom of spending money on a barrier instead of schools and health care but acknowledges the US has a sovereign right. He considers the why. Arias and his daughters are deeply grateful to the Border Patrol. They respected my shrine, Arias said.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.